Hi, I'm Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Turn Anytime, wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, it is wonderful to have you along. Moadim l'simcha, good moed, happy holidays, happy New Year. This is our special Chol Hamoed Sukkos edition, and of course, v'samachta b'chagecha. There's a special mitzvah of simcha on Sukkos, as we spoke about in our Sukkos podcast. And what greater simcha could there be to have one of the most dynamic, I'm hesitant to use the word entertainer, I would say mashbiim in the Jewish world, Nissim Black.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you, really appreciate it.
Okay, now this is really our first time together. You know, now I've had other musical stars on before. I had Ari Goldwag, I had Lenny Solomon, and but these guys we go back 30 years. But this is really our first time. Right. So I'm going to start off by asking what I think is the obvious question. I don't think you grew up in a frum home.
No, what would make you say that? I don't even understand why you
I don't know, because people are always surprised when they hear that my house was a Jewish house. So I'm just going to put it right out there. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Nissim Black. Where did you come from?
That's a very good question. I'm still trying to figure out where I came from. The truth is...
The bigger question is where you're going.
Where you're going. So originally from Seattle. The story's a bit why? I don't know. And I don't like saying it publicly anymore. Over the last few years, it's not the most geschmack place to say you came from.
It's gotten a lot worse, but it was rainy and drizzly.
Okay, but I could deal with that. I can't deal with the city being overturned.
I went to Yeshiva in Rochester. It has one of the most cloudy more cloudy days than any other city, and it has one of the highest suicide rates.
Yeah, that's like Seattle. Seattle, very people like to kill themselves. Anyway, so I grew up there in Seattle. It was very, very close in proximity to all the shuls. I grew up literally inside the area, so I was in a Jewish neighborhood. We were not Shomer Shabbos, but I definitely grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. But both my mother and my father, very typical, drug life as a kid. I grew up in that, seeing that experience.
Now I have to say, when you say typical,
I say typical from where
you are now.
It's not so typical from where I am now, but it was very, very, like I said, if to check the, I guess the box. Now the truth is that it's overdid, and I don't think like most black people in America even are coming from that. But I'm saying when we stereotype, I came from the stereotype. Right. I came from very much so that. But the difference was that I had that most people didn't have. Was I did have still a mother and father. So even though I had dysfunction, I still had my mother and my stepfather in the house. I still had him. I still had my relationship with my biological father. They say having a father
in the house makes 100% difference.
It makes all the difference in the world, because even as bad as I could say I had it, there were things that I had that was much better. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking about, I was having a conversation with one of my kids, and they tell me how strict we are, and we're more strict than whatever. And after you get it out, it's like one thing that they can't do and they really want to do. So I started thinking about that. I felt the same way when I was a kid. Now, mind you, I grew up in the things that I saw were unimaginable. The things that I saw and the things I got to experience and things I was involved. But compared to most of my friends who didn't have a father figure in the house, they were either being raised by their grandmother and stuff like that. I felt like I was being smothered, I'm saying a little bit.
My kids, when they complain about me, I said, my father had one educational device. He took off his belt and beat you. That was it. That was the only thing we knew, And they complain about me.
Right.
I looked at them the wrong way.
Right, exactly. It's crazy what we've come to. But anyway, so I grew up seeing a lot of violence, different things like that. And then as you grow up in that type of neighborhood, you sort of become a product of your environment. What was interesting about me is that I always felt a little out of place. I always felt that there were deeper things. I don't know why I had a longing. I went to school.
You were like a good student?
until maybe my middle school years, meaning that through elementary, I was, almost valedictorian and all the other stuff. Yeah, I think I lost like to one friend. I'm still a little salty about it, but it's okay. I'm gonna make it through. But by the time I got into the 6th grade, and around my 7th grade year, I was getting into a lot of trouble.
To come from that kind of a background and to do your homework. Listen, full disclosure. Yeah. My parents worked day and night. So I came home. There was nobody to tell me what to do.
To tell you what to do.
Right. I made supper for myself, one of my brothers. Right. I stayed up and watched Johnny Carson. I was only 2nd grader watching Johnny Carson in the 1 o'clock in the morning. Well. And, I went through the day half asleep, but I never did my homework.
You never did your homework.
So you're in elementary school. I was at least doing my homework.
Yeah, I was doing my homework until 6th or 7th grade. By the time I was already in the 3rd grade, that's when I started smoking pot. So 3rd grade. So it became a really serious issue when I was around 12, 13. That was when it became an issue. And since there were plants growing in my living room, in my bedroom. They grew in my bedroom. Because of the way that my closet was, I guess that's where I thought was the best place to put the plants. So, easy access. And I had an uncle who lived with me. God bless his heart, he was sweet, but he was definitely a junkie. And so for him, he used to go and take from the plants. And so I used to threaten him, if he didn't share with us, I was going to tell on him. So he was always getting in trouble for we were a little short, at the end of the month on the budding. But that's what I did as a kid, unfortunately. And so by the time of 6th grade,
so then it's impossible to go to school.
Yeah, by that time I was at school. I was the weed man at school. I was selling it. I was, So I found myself sinking very fast. I started running with a street gang at that time, and really.
No, that neighborhood. It was probably a mixed high school. It wasn't black.
It was predominantly black. Predominantly black, yeah, by me. I could, for sure, in terms
that neighborhood where you are.
Where I was, is very, very diverse. I think 98118. I don't know if it still is, but definitely growing up, it was the most, we always heard it was. I never looked at statistics. Were all the white kids? It was, they sent the kids to a different school far away from us. That's what they did. There was, I could probably count on one hand how many white kids went to my school. And that's crazy in Seattle.
No, it's a white neighborhood.
The black population is not very big in Seattle, enough to be like, wow, there's a school. And yes, we were, ironically enough, I think we were number 1 in the country in basketball for most of my high school years. And
that wasn't because of the white kids.
No, for sure. and we didn't have any white players. And we definitely were dead last in test scores and in education. We didn't even have books. I always talk about this, but we had brand new basketball uniforms and everything like that. I don't know who was allocating the budget, but they definitely
no
didn't
books,
put it towards
basketball uniforms.
But basketball, football uniform, state of the art stadium. I'm talking about everything except for books.
Sports?
We had. I was very into sports. I played football. I play football. We're very good at football also. Very, very good. Through our division, we would smack teams up like 50-something to 0, And then by the time we got very close to state championship, it was always some very well-disciplined white team that knocked us off. They didn't have half the talent as us, but their discipline was like crazy,
My brothers went to sports. I was a little good at miniature golf.
Really?
That was a specialty kind of a sport.
Some people call it a sport. Some people don't, But those are things I grew up seeing, and I became a product of my environment. But the truth was, I was always still a deep kid. Even when, I was just talking with one of my aunties, I did like a Instagram live, and everybody I've heard it from my family always said that everybody knew you were different. You were always really a good kid. So no matter, the thing is, the truth is, I'll be honest, everybody was so high all the time that, nobody really realized what I was doing. The tekufa I had when I was like being a troublemaker and all that, right. Nobody was really paying attention. You understand what I mean?
When you're hooked on pot, how in the world do you move out of that?
Yeah, it's you really
unless you get off the stuff.
No, of course after you get out of it. So what happened to me was, I'm very, very fortunate that I always had some type of I've always had enough fear to stay clear, meaning that my fear of getting in trouble as a kid, I think it was because I had that father figure in my life. I still always had that bit of fear to where I didn't want to get in too much trouble, right?
But a street gang doesn't usually bring out the best in a person.
No, of course not. But so what happens is, I remember the first thing that I did, I was with some of the guys, is that I smoked something that definitely had something else in it. It was not weed.
Crack.
I don't know what it was. It could have been maybe mixed with cocaine. I don't know if your audience is ready for that. I don't know what it is.
Listen, if you're with the Rabbi Orlofsky show, then you're in for the ride.
Okay. So whatever it was that I took flattened me in the park. I was like out in the park. And after that, I said, never again. And so from then, I at least stopped smoking. But that was like probably the beginning of starting to realize that, these guys are just running around. They don't have, their parents are not really around or whatever. At least my house is dysfunctional. We have drugs on this stuff, but at least have parents. They at least care about me. You understand? So these things start to wake me up a little bit. I was running away a lot as a kid, running away from the house, staying away to other family members that I know I could just go be Hefker, whatever. And the truth is that that's when you start to realize that you have love at home. Like nobody's gonna love you like you loved at home. So that was the beginning, I would say, of the wake up calls for me. I had got in trouble. I mean, I think I was 13 when I first got shot at. It was like with some other. I didn't even think there was some conflict going on with some other guys, but we just happened to have been in the area. They thought we were all with them. All of a sudden, shots start firing. We're running, and I'm, seeing bullets. You have some traumatic stuff happen. As a young kid, you start to you either wake up or you go deeper into sleep. For me, it started to wake me up. So right around 13, 14, I was going to this. I started going to a hip hop program that a friend. Now, this friend that brought me there, God bless his heart, but like he was a gangster. but it was an opportunity to make hip hop.
A lot of those in the hip hop world. Based on my short research that I do.
The truth is, most of it today. There was a Takufa when rap was more like that, which really was not the culture of hip hop.
Is there a difference between rap and hip hop? Because I hear the terms used interchangeably.
They are today now used interchangeably. But it's Lahavdil is like saying, a Yisrael and a Jew. It's like it's an Israelite Jew. It's like that now. What happened was technically is that hip hop is technically a culture. Rap is one of those elements of that culture, right? And, I mean, I call a spade a spade. We came over here, meaning that my ancestors, from far as I know, at least the black side of my ancestry, I do have ancestry that's not black, but I'm saying came here as slaves, and we were completely ripped away from any culture of understanding where it came from. So over the years, we always tried to build cultures and different things in America. Hip hop just happened to be one of those things. So hip hop is a culture, and included in that is b-boying, a certain type of dancing. Included in that is rap. That's one of the elements. DJing is one of the elements. MCing is, so these
Matisyahu.
things. Matisyahu was reggae. It's a different thing.
That's reggae. Okay.
That's reggae. So I feel bad. I feel bad for people. Madis took a hit. He really took a hit. He was getting called a rapper and all this other stuff by From Chevra. They didn't know what rap was. So poor guy. If now they can know that he was only reggae, it was okay.
Eminem is
Eminem is rap. Definitely rap. But that's good. We're schooling you over here.
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
We're taking you up a little bit. We're going high.
Listen.
So kosher high. And so anyway, I grew up seeing all this stuff. And so by the time I'm 13, 14, I'm going to this hip hop program, which was at a Union Gospel Mission. It was a Christian organization, and it was life changing. These people came into my life.
Your family was Christian?
My family was not Christian. My biological father became a Christian over the years of my life. And now today you would meet this guy, one of the best people I've ever met. I'm talking about, you would never think he had that type of past.
Didn't have any religion?
So before, no religion. They were not religious at all. People, I'm sure if you ask them that they believe, they would probably say, yeah, technically we're Christian, but like practicing, not at all. And they probably wouldn't even have known what that really meant. So my father did time in prison. went to seminary over there. He came out and really changed his life radically. Amazing. Sold everything that he had, everything from that world, and became a Christian. So sort of what he did with Christianity is what I did with Judaism years later. So it was very, very interesting.
How did they take it when you decided to become Jewish?
Interestingly enough, my father, who is Christian, who probably should have gave me the most issues technically, right? Because I'm like joining a different religion, you know what I mean? He came to the Chasana. He was very supportive. He has a big love for Israel. So by him, it was much more different. But I think we connected over the fact that he knows what it's like to be radically changed by a God experience, right? And wanting to change your life. So I think that made him more accepting, as opposed to with a family that was not religious at all. And I would say my wife's family was some degree religious. It was very hard for them in the beginning. Very, very hard. Oh, you get joining a cult. They had no idea. It's so foreign to them. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you know? So it was very hard for everybody in the beginning. Very, very hard. But in all fairness, we didn't stick around so much to care about what everybody was saying.
So I'm jumping ahead now. So you're getting into hip hop and or rap.
Mm-hmm. And yes.
And
but I was always into hip hop. I have to state, both my mother and my father were both rappers. Really? So they pioneered hip hop in Seattle. So they were part of the first group in 1980.
They performed?
They performed, yeah, with Grandmaster Flash, in the Furious 5, and yeah.
So you have yichus.
Exactly. It's the yichus. People think like all of a sudden, like, that's the biggest thing is like, I know people a lot of times in the fruit world is like connect rap, but I'm literally doing whatever I do. I'm being tahara, something that was given to me from my birth. This is what I've been doing, like literally. I recorded my first professional song. I was 13 already, right? So wow. I've been going for a very, very long time. It wasn't like something where I like start listening to rap music. I guaranteed you, from most people, I would say even from frum singers, God bless their heart, they probably heard more rap than I have in the last 10 years. I haven't even heard.
You hear from singers singing rap?
Yeah, of course.
What is it? What do you think? What do you think of it?
Listen, you know, everybody's got their thing. You know, some guys are good, no doubt about it.
Really?
So a lot of these young, talented guys are very, very good. I see it by a lot of young talent I'm seeing right now. A lot of it is because they're emulating the things that they hear all the time too. You know, it's like you know, a lot of these young Sephardi kids, like they want to make me feel comfortable. They're using the N-word casually and stuff like that to me also too. It's like they're emulating what they hear. I tell them it's just not a good look. Right. Already by Yidden, we don't talk like this in the first place. But then the second thing, like, you're not making me feel any more comfortable right now. If anything, it's very awkward. Right?
I came to learn in Chavetz Chaim in 1975. Mm-hmm. There was nothing to do in Yerushalayim. I mean, they pulled in the sidewalks at 8 o'clock. It was like Saturday night, the Asper Yeshiva made the Asper Yeshiva band. All these people came from the rock world. They were real rockers.
Yeah, that's right.
So when they played, they were playing rock, but it wasn't because they were copying anybody. That was their medium.
That's
so
where they came.
What you're doing is where you come from. That's your music. That's what you grew up with.
Absolutely. I'm not, you know.
It's not like some yeshiva guy who's trying to, like, you know.
Exactly. So for me, I've always been very cautious.
I like to eat some kugel and I go to the
You can rhyme a lot of things with Kugel. Anyway, the truth is, so for me, I'm always very reluctant. Like, people all the time, like, what about your kids? Like, my kids don't come from that culture. They don't come from that world. So for me, do I encourage it? I can't really say encourage. I just feel like this is technically, this is literally what Hashem gave me to do. He gave me a gift and talent. I try to run away from it. I was encouraged by rabbis and tzaddikim even to use my koach and to bring people close to Hashem. So I'm doing it. Do I recommend it for every person just because, you know, they're listening to the newest rap song or whatever and they get inspired and now they want to rap? I don't really know if that's shaykh, to be honest, you know. Just because it's, you know, I forget exactly. Somebody's gonna tell me. I don't know if it was Nissim Shalom. I remember hearing it. At least I could say it over in first place in my Rebbe. I did see it inside somewhere, but I forgot where it was. I remember Rabbi Shmuel Brody would caution us all the time that what's the true avodah zarah? True avodah zarah is any type of avodah that's strange to you. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
That's the avodah. Like, if it's not your actual avodah, it has nothing to do with you and you're taking it on, you know? Even us, sometimes I get excited. I'm around a lot of big tzaddikim and they do things that I can't necessarily do. I start doing what they're doing just because I'm around this person. This is a Avodah. It's not mine. I don't own it. It's not coming from me. So sometimes I see these type of things where these young kids are trying to take on hip hop culture and different things like that. It's Avodah. It's a strange worship. It's not where you came from. I come from that world, and I don't act and talk the way that other people like. They trying to make me feel comfortable.
Someone told me a story. I don't know if it's true or not.
Okay.
But this guy was learning Mishnayos Mevueres. And someone comes over to him. This is an old story. And he says, what are you doing? Why aren't you using a real Mishnayos? He says, this is very good. He says, it's not for you. It's for Balabatim. If people can't learn your yeshiva boy, you should learn it. He says, what do you know? He goes, I'm Kahati. So I wrote it for somebody. I didn't write it for you. You know, like, you should be sitting down learning a real Mishnayos.
Right. So,
all right, so you're in the hip-hop world now. You're performing.
Yeah. So I was in the hip-hop world. I was started, in the beginning, no. Like I said, at 13, I started. By the time I was 15, I started performing in like nightclubs I wasn't old enough to get into. I used to have an escort take me into the nightclub, and then I have to go back out so they don't lose their liquor license. So that's why I started. Like literally straight up groomed to do this as a kid.
Wow.
And then right around 19, I think, already throughout high school, I was releasing stuff and different things like that.
You were still going to school?
I was still going to school. I was in high school.
Graduated
and because of the Christian experience I had when I was 14, that sort of changed me. That sort of got me on a good trajectory. I was able to go to school and focus. I got away from a lot of the friends that were influencing me the bad way. And it was a restart because since I was from my middle school years, I was expelled from the regular school system. I had a restart when I was in high school. They allowed me to go to a regular high school. So for me, it was a brand new start in life, new lease on life, basically. And I did what I can, but I was a very, very, I would say, devout Christian kid. I was very, very, very devout. Like not like a little bit. I was straight Bible thumping, Bible study, everything. The only thing I didn't do though was church because it was on Sunday and it was a conflict with football.
Guy told me he went to a daven in an old age school, and this old man has Hagbard. He goes, Jesus, this thing is heavy. Another guy says, well, for Christ's sake, don't drop it. So I guess there's some very devout Jews also.
It's very good. I love that. I'm putting that one in my pocket. I love it. So in either way it goes, I was just talking. It's so funny. I was talking to one of my kids about this yesterday. Of like, even in that world, like how focused I was, at least in that place in my life, with trying to come closer to God. At least from the way that I knew it. I remember my friends years later that came to my house.
Still growing pot in the house.
Still growing pot in the house. By this time, I don't think he was growing it in the house at this point. There was a tekufa where when my dad, meaning my stepdad, I just don't like using the term because I never call him. I don't refer to. He raised me. He's a good man. Raised me. He was still at this point. He was doing some good things on the side. He had a business for a little bit. That was doing very well. And, still the culture was still in the house. A lot of stuff was still going on. But up until, I think it wasn't until like nearly my last year of high school that the contract that they had with the business. And then, it was back to the hustle and everything was as it was before. So that was my home environment was still never place. My name was not Nissim. My name was Damian Black. I used to go by D Black. That's what people used to call me in the streets.
So you could have changed your last name too.
I could have changed my last name.
You could make it Schwartz.
Yeah, and I looked into, I couldn't go to Schwartz because I converted Sephardi. So I was already looking into Sephardi names already back then. And it just, after a while, of trying to think about changing my name, it was just sort of like, whatever. It just didn't work out. And I'm happy I did
that. They changed their last name too.
They changed the last name also. No, I know a lot of people also too. And I just really didn't think that was shaykh. I mean, nobody's going to call me up to the Torah by my last name anyway. So it doesn't matter. So last names are for the government. They have nothing to do with reality. Anyway, so I ended up going from this camp and that experience that I had to being this straight devout kid, but I was still making music on the side. And the music at this point was more positive, there was no more street stuff and different things like that going on. And by the time I was 19, yeah, some of them songs had the Christian ideas in it. But for the most part, stuff was just, sometimes I would rap about rapping. That's a very famous thing to rap about, is to rap about rapping. Right. And but more or less very positive, no swear words or anything. And then it was around 18, a demo of mine made it to the desk of an A&R from a big record label. And they were very interested in me, but they wanted gangster rap. So I caved into that, thinking that I wasn't going to change, but obviously change, because you want to first act, put on the persona, then eventually, you start make-believing to yourself that this is also who you are. And so my inner circle, the group of people I was around changed. And although things were changing for me externally, on the inside, I wasn't really changing that much. And I found myself more confused because I was also confused about how I was presenting myself. But I was still definitely making music.
Very strong forces in a person's life.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm still waiting for them. But Robert Sinclair said to me once, what is it with these fruit people that you all feel like you should have done something?
You're right. Nah, the truth is we're doing big things.
I know, but
Yeah, of course. For me, I think I was always groomed that way also too. But then as I got older, certainly thereafter Yiddishkeit and everything, you do sort of see that, Hashem, you had this thing planned for a very long time. I could see how it all happened. I remember dreams I had as a kid, like literal dreams, not small things and things like that, and where I saw myself. So
now you're finally making it in the music world. Yes,
at this point, we didn't end up going with the big deal. We started doing it independently, which was in a way much better because we controlled everything. And so, and the hype went beyond. We sort of overdid it a little bit, meaning that we kind of outgrew ourselves a little bit. There was CD stores on the East Coast and stuff like that calling for my CD, and I didn't know people on the East Coast knew who I was. So it was like a sort of very interesting place to be in. But with that came, also hate as well. Other people want the success you're having. So that led to altercation with another artist. And it did not end the best way. A friend of mine tried to kill him. And that put me in a kill-or-kill situation because they thought I sent somebody to kill them. And that was the last straw for me. Out of all the different things, I had lost my mother, a year prior to this incident due to overdose. My mother overdosed. And it was just one thing after another happening in my life and me breaking down. And even when I was that young, Christian kid, a teenager, and growing up into where I was always felt that I had a clock on, a clock was going on, that either I was going to, God forbid, die at a young age, or I'm going to be God's guy all the way. Wow. And I knew that even over there, that I felt that people would say it to me oh, God has it, whatever, and whatever. But I felt inside really that at some point I'm going to be doing the God thing. Wow. I didn't know at all what it was going to look like, what it was going to be. At that one point, I thought I'm going to be a pastor, and I know it. And let me get out all my shtiel right now, because I know that in the future, God's going to either do that or I'm going to get myself in trouble. So, and God had other plans. So from that, I was already dating my wife. So me and my wife were high school sweethearts. So we've been together since we were 16. Yeah. I was 16. She was 17. I like older women.
In the world that you were traveling.
Oh my goodness. You don't know how unusual. I'm trying to think of how many married friends I have, from that world, let alone how many of them are still alive, unfortunately. Very close friends I lost. So we were already dating, and we were already going through this whole entire process already by this time, already together 4 years or so. And we decided, as I was growing and learning, and she was also, my wife, come from a much stronger Christian background. We got married very young. I think I was 21 when I got married. Yeah. It's not so young. But it's young.
In the real world.
In the real world, that's very young. And so we started this life of us just trying to search and find what the truth was, trying to find God. And it really led to me spending a lot of time going through books. After I was done with that situation and the last altercation I had with that guy had dissipated, I said, God, I'm committed. I didn't know what that meant. I thought that meant I was going to be a Christian. So that was definitely the first place I went.
The two of you come from strong Christian backgrounds.
Yeah, so that's the first place you go back to. You go back and
that didn't speak to you.
It wasn't that it didn't speak to me. The problem was that was this God's actual revelation to the world? You understand what I mean? Because it wasn't that it didn't speak to me. The thing is that why does it speak to me? That was my question. Like, why this way? I started to get very, very curious because I just started in the regular way. I started praying, and then I started reading the Bible. And as I was reading it, I started to see a lot of things about, about what's going to be in the Atid, in the future. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. A person starts reading eschatology and starts seeing that everywhere in
Thank
eschatology.
you. Hard to work into a conversation.
End times. I take your joke, you take my word.
Okay.
That in the end times, and this is like the biggest thing in the world. I talk about this a lot now, even when I'm out speaking, is that when you study eschatology, every promise that God makes of the future through the prophets includes the Jewish people. The ultimate promises of the end include the Jewish people.
Not Revelations.
Huh? The book of Revelations.
Right, Revelations is...
Not the book of Revelations. No, I'm studying the I'm studying talking
the
about
Old Testament.
The Old Testament.
What are you doing there?
I say the Nevi'im, but even still, it's not the truth. The book of Revelations also too ends with the Jews, because at the end of the day, if I can remember very well, it's been a long time since I read the book of Revelations. The whole Satan, the synagogue of Satan that it talks about over there is because somebody's not the real Jews. That gets used very differently these days by certain groups. But it definitely talks about these saints and different things like that. But I was very, very busy with learning. I'd already learned Revelations a lot as a Christian. So, but what I hadn't really studied was Messianic prophecies about the end times from the Old Testament. It's
Do they teach that in Christianity?
Of course they teach it in Christianity, but I was with a group that wasn't so busy with it. So I'm by myself now, and I'm reading the Bible for myself. But everywhere I seen, it was always about the Jewish people, about the Jewish land. And so it made me start thinking like, wow, a lot of pasukim and stuff that I heard people use lightly talking about the church wasn't talking about the church. They're talking about the Jewish people. So it made me more interested. I grew up with Jews. I didn't know anything about Jews. I knew how to identify one. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I did not know.
And by wholesale.
Huh? By wholesale.
I think you spot him.
You said it, not me.
I say it. So you're sitting here studying the end of time prophecies about the Jewish people, and you say to yourself, hey, here I am, a black rapper in Seattle. Why don't I become a Jew?
It wasn't that fast.
There's the jump that I'm having trouble with.
Exactly. So what happened was it made me curious. I wanted to know that what it led me to think about was like, why do I believe in Christianity? What makes me know that this is the actual truth? How come Judaism is not the truth? How come Islam isn't the truth? I was a Muslim as a kid. My grandfather was Sunni Muslim. So I prayed 5 times a day with him when he lived with me. I was 8 or 9. So I wasn't a strong, devout Muslim like that. I tried again when I was maybe 13, right before I started going to the Christian camp. But I wasn't like strong, devout Muslim. So I said, I want to give everything a chance. I want to see who's really telling the truth. So I started ordering all the books. I had the Quran. I was going through a few different versions of the Christian Bible, the NIV, in KJV version, the old King James. I had all the different versions. So my focus in Christianity, which one you should use. I had to, I went to cover all opinions.
Yeah, I got you.
So I had a Chumash, JPS Tanakh, and I was literally every day for about 8 hours a day going through all these different texts, trying to find the truth.
This is not normal.
It was 1,000% not normal. It was 1,000% not normal. I guaranteed you I probably didn't have another friend doing what I was doing.
Most Jewish kids wouldn't do this.
Right. Which is interesting to me also too, because I'm very osik with the younger generation, you know what I'm saying? Even in the frum world and because of who I am, also in the not frum world. But the amount of effort that I was putting in, at least even as a young kid, a teenager, as a Christian, to come close to God was like really like enormous. And like most kids don't really think about it till they get older. And I know for me, that's awkward. So for me, and even my wife was like that as a kid. My sister and brother-in-law, who also were my guy with it, like we were like that as a kid. We were very interested.
Sister-in-law?
Okay, so let me finish the story.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the story gets
You
crazy.
messed up everybody.
Yeah, I messed You're right. The shim should help. So what happened was the after going through all the different texts, people always ask me, what was it about Judaism that stuck out more than the other ones? There's a few different things. But one of the things obviously is that all the future prophecies had to do with the Jews. Jews were a part of, that was by every book. Everybody agreed with that, right? Even the Islamic hadiths, I had copies of the hadiths I was going through. They weren't so pleasantly with the Jews, but the Jews, everybody agreed that at the end, Jews had to be at the end, right? So that was one thing. Another thing was the.
Do you think they wouldn't try so hard to kill us all the time?
Yeah, you think.
When you think was there,
but you think. But like, who can deny, right? Everybody gives and they talk about why they're correct and why their religion is right and different things like that. But who can deny that the Jewish people, Klal Yisrael, being here in Eretz Yisrael, after all of the, like, I'm looking at it. I didn't know anything about Jewish history till I started doing this. Now I'm spending these 8 hours a day. Up until then, never heard of the Holocaust. Never, and that's pretty ridiculous. But in my school, where we didn't have books, we also did learn about the Holocaust. At least I did. None of my classes. Maybe because I was in the dumb classes. But whatever the case is, I didn't know anything about it. And so now I'm doing all of this learning and research, and I start looking at the Jewish
That's
story.
a heck of a thing to stumble onto.
Yeah.
And like, who would want to become a Jew after that?
Yeah. Well, it's so ironic. Right. It should be a deterrent.
Let me get this straight.
Right.
They're going to try to exterminate me if I join?
No, I thought about all this at the beginning. I was really thinking about this. I was just like, wow. But what I couldn't help seeing from that was that it was through the suffering that I seen from the Jewish people, that I was seeing those things, and that through that God still retained it. And I think more than any Jewish thing that I read, it was probably Mark Twain's quote that he made, and I came across that. I was blown away because that opens up your eyes. And it wasn't, I didn't care whether or not because he was Jewish or not Jewish or whatever, but it just, to have somebody say it so clear that way, to look at when he came to Eretz Yisrael and to see the land. And I just went through the Bible twice now, okay? The whole entire Tanakh. And I'm seeing how many times Hashem says the land's going to be desolate. And for him to write, he was there, it was desolate. I came across quotes, different things, historians from the Ottoman Empire and stuff like that. God's word was just so real, what's happening, right? And as crazy as it is, how many people struggle with the belief in Hashem, you know? Like, I know it's not the most pleasant things, but it's through the suffering of Klal Yisrael that you can see that Hashem's money is in the bank. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't do this, how many times, and you see us, get expelled from the land. You see us, the land is barren. You see that there's no rain, and we're praying dominant from. When you see that Hashem is saying that, so that means that I could probably bank on him about all the good things that are also going to come.
This is the 7 Wonders class from Discovery. Exactly what they say.
Never seen it.
It's you're saying it over
really?
word. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
You're mechaven.
I should probably watch them up. I'm sure they have more good material. But I seen all this, and when I came across the passages from Zechariah, and from even Yirmiyahu, I think there's one of them we use as
Yeshayahu has a lot of
Yeshayahu also talks about this, that talks about the Goyim coming to the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
These things are like crazy because in your world as a Christian, right, your idea is that in the end everybody's either going to accept Jesus or not. They're going to hell and they're going to be whatever,
the pit of hell.
Right. And coming from the Christian world, I was seeing and learning about the importance of the Jewish people from a Christian perspective of how important it is for the Jews to be in Israel and why they were doing all the funding. Because that was my angle first. It's like first thing was like, wow, the Jewish people in Israel. Wow, look at God's prophecy coming to life, and once they're all there, they're all going to accept Jesus. And
see, the part here that I find fascinating is that I've had these discussions with Usher Wade, and okay, but he was a Baptist minister.
Right.
He was a professional religion guy. You were a rapper in a black community where your parents are growing pot. And you're sitting here coming up with all of these deep intellectual insights into religion, which I find mind-blowing.
Right. I don't, because I think that, like I said, that's who I always was as a kid. My mother used to always say, why are you asking all these deep questions, when a kid, about God? I was asking these questions about God and how do we know that, what did I used to ask my mother? I used to ask my mother a question about God. How do we know? Obviously, how do we know that God is real? What do we do with our life if God is real? We don't live that type of, like, nobody was over there thinking, like, man, you're messing up my high. Asking me all these questions, you understand? So I was asking very, very deep questions already as a kid. My mother used to always say that. So I was God conscious, even and that's out of nowhere. It wasn't like somebody was around. That was just out of nowhere.
Right.
So when it actually became a part of my life, I'm that type of person where if I do something, I'm going all the way. If it has purpose, I'm going all the way. So for me,
fanatical person.
Yeah, I'm exactly. Exactly. I'm a fanatical
Once
person.
I knew that it was true, I had no choice. I had to keep it,
right?
And I had to become a rabbi.
Exactly.
That's what I said. Like, that's it. If I'm in this, I'm in it.
If I wouldn't have became a Breslov, I probably would have became a rabbi also too. Yeah. Just as a side note, Rabbi Nachman, but Derek Cloud will encourage people not to become rabbis. You don't learn for smicha. You learn because you're whatever. So I took that on to the extreme, even though there's Breslov rabbis. I just took certain things onto extreme. But for me, it was
I'm telling you now that we're going to have to get together a second time because we don't have time now. But I really want to talk about Uman.
We'll get there.
My son
have some time to talk about Uman.
My son was there, and he gave me a little insight into the Uman experience. But that's for another discussion.
Okay.
We haven't even talked about any music yet.
Okay. So anyway, here because I could go on forever, but that is the hardest thing always is to give over the moment you're sitting there. And you start, your world to some degree is crashing and being built up at the same time because everything you thought and you knew about God, about your religion and all this stuff. Like I didn't grow up, like I said, I didn't grow up in it, but I was devout and very strong Christian in my teenage years. Like I was involved in I was leading Bible study groups already. So that moment when you start to realize that, hey, this is really the reverse, Why is it saying that the 10 from each nation is going to grab the hem of a Jew and say, I want to go with you for I heard God is with you. You understand like this stuff when you're seeing it and you're going like the nations are going to come and say, I've inherited lies from my fathers as we are inheriting, as we're realizing the things that we thought
so you didn't took this
were
over
lies.
Ministers and pastors and
so my father, God bless his heart, is a pastor. Now today he's a pastor. At that time he was already a theologian, doctor, founded his own Bible college in the urban community.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing guy. And I would never argue with my father. I already had, kibudav. I would have never argued with my father, but I would pick his brain on certain things about Christmas, Easter, different things like Christian
Did he have
customs.
answers to these questions?
He had answers, but he answered me in the affirmative. Yeah, these things were pagan. The church came, they sanctified, and now they did it. He would answer me honestly. He didn't know why I was asking. He didn't know what I was studying and different things like that. But I would ask him, and he would answer quite honest because he's an honest person. He wasn't like he was like trying to hold anything back. And I also wasn't given to him that I was asked. So that was one person I was asking. I had other friends who were around me who were Christians, mentors even that I had. And I would start telling them a lot of different things I was learning and ask for them questions, and they really didn't. It wasn't that deep for them. So for most Christians, it's not that deep.
Most Christians don't know anything about Christianity.
No, exactly.
I found I know a lot more about Christianity than they do.
No, it's true. Very, very true. And it's ironic that most Christians, if you ask, they didn't think to look into the history even of Christianity to even understand, one of the things I started having trouble with as time went on was how can you be really a diehard Christian, right? Today, evangelicals, beautiful people, a lot of them, very sweet people. I do work with a lot of them, great. But then, they never read church fathers. They don't know who Ignatius is. They don't know who Justin Martyr is. They don't know anything about the foundation of Christianity. They don't really know. They only know at some point they had maybe some experience, and they realized that they were a sinner, and Jesus was the solution.
Let Jesus into my heart.
Let Jesus into my heart, and that was it.
And there's no way to argue with it.
Yeah, you definitely can't argue.
You can't argue with how I feel.
Exactly. So because of that, it makes it very, very hard for them to ever have an experience like I did, right? But most of the people that, if you see that become Jewish, is because they were reading the Bible and they kept on going over it, and they started to realize, and they didn't allow themselves. And I know this happens to a lot of people who, come from Christianity. And like I said, God bless them, a lot of good people. However, they just allow themselves to go, I go by faith, when they see that in the book of Luke and in the book of Matthew that the genealogies don't match up. Like, okay, we'll keep going. We'll keep going about that. Or if there's, 4 different accounts of in the Passion narrative of who found him at the tomb. He wasn't at the tomb. He was already risen. Like, nobody ever gets it, but these are all eyewitness accounts. It's like, yeah. And so the natural thing is they were all human. So they all saw it a little bit different than the other one saw it different and whatever. Okay, but that's true. But who wrote this? How did this thing get canonized?
He said when he started having questions, he went to the higher ups in the church. Mm-hmm. And they said, I used to have questions like that. Mm-hmm. So what did you do? He said, I prayed until they went away.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's not going to work for me.
That's a solution. You pray until they go away. So, like I said, I don't mean to harp on it, but that was really a lot of the things that was going on with me. But it's hard because
so now you see. Okay, my gosh, Judaism is true.
Right.
Did you consider Reform and conservative?
No, because it wasn't even a thing for me. Like, I was telling him, I guess because I'm out of the box, I do a lot with different reform and conservative groups and stuff. I'm invited to perform at a lot of different places where a lot of these different denominations are. And so kids always ask me, like, why Orthodox? Why didn't you think of like reform, conservative, and everything? And I tell them straight up, I just went wherever God was most popular. I went there. I was attached with God, and wherever Hashem was most popular, that's where I went. You understand what I mean? All the way. And I would even
give them a lot of time in the Orthodox community.
Right. So because of that, so you went to one of the
Orthodox synagogues, and
so I went back to my childhood neighborhood. First thing was we were already confused. Like, are we going to convert? Were we not going to? As we're coming into first place,
I had a
Takufa.
This whole thing.
No, she thought it was crazy. No way. She thought it was nuts. Yeah, no way. She thought it was nuts.
Honey, I think we should become Orthodox Jews.
No, because I'm explaining this like it all happened so fast. It was really a long period of time, meaning that, we spent 2 years in the Messianic congregation trying to figure ourselves out. Right. So that was a Takufa itself of us, realizing on that. I sort of already realized these different passages before. So I thought the first way in, how do I attach myself to Jewish people, become Messianic? Because first thing I'm not going to do is give up on Jesus. Like, that was the last thing. That's a one-way ticket to a place I didn't want to go in my head. So the first place was this Messianic, is like, how do I qualify all these things? Oh, these people, wow, they believe the Torah is true. We learned all that, and they also believe, okay, yes, we put Jesus is now, he's Yeshua. Okay, this is great. But the problem is, over there, the more and more you grow, and the more you start to see that this is also foreign to Judaism as well. And over there, it makes it a little bit easier to make the step, I guess, at least, because what happens is that the more and more you come closer to the actual Torah and you're involved in it. And for us, the Messianic congregation that we were part of was very big into Torah Shabbat Pei. Some people are more like church, but we're very big into Torah Shabbat Pei. They were already davening out of Art Scroll Sidorim and different things like that in Hebrew. So because of that, it was a big stepping stone for us to actual Yiddishkeit, because after a while, it's like, well, it became very, very hard to qualify why you should hold on to something when all the proof is in the pudding.
In the Art Scroll.
Nah, you didn't find
Jesus.
There's
one place in the Rosh Hashanah Machzor, in the original one, where they slipped in this thing by mistake that someone had put in once, Yeshu's name in the middle of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can show it to you.
So the Chevra's busy.
It's a rule. Art Scroll leaves Jesus out.
Okay. That's what they do, you know. And so it was that breaking point was crazy, because what happened was, by this time, I should tell you where we were. It was me, my wife's sister was dating my best friend from kindergarten, Yosef. And so essentially me and my best friend married sisters. That's what it is.
They were coming along for the ride.
They were coming along. We were all learning together. We were sharpening each other, and it was all four of us. And I, even before, I don't usually tell this part of my story, but as we were growing in my community there, I lived in an apartment complex. I worked for that apartment complex, and I lived there. I was holding like Bible study groups, every Friday night. We didn't know Shabbos anything. So as we started learning, more Torah Shabbat Pei, it went from like, what was
making a challenge for them.
I'm telling you, it just like over time, the more we learned, there was challahs, then there was, what I'm saying, man, the Shabbat, like it just started turning into a more Jewish experience. The more and more we learned, nobody knew where we were going with it every dance, all the way to it. And when the Kugel came, everybody, it was over. I'm joking.
We made more Jews through Kugel and Shalom than anything else.
So
wow.
So that was that experience, and the more and more you just
at
have
some point
to
you got to bring a rabbi into this.
Well, we did. So the first rabbi, I think that was like beyond impactful for us. Apart from the rabbis I was watching on Chabad.org. Shout out to Mendel Kaplan also. I was watching a lot of him. Rabbi Schaefer, the Shmooze. That was like, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson I used to listen to online. This is all while I was Messianic. I was listening to all these guys. I was really in the place of figuring out. I told Rabbi Y.Y. I used to listen to him on Shabbos.
We have a certain percentage of non-Jewish listeners.
Yeah? That's, okay, also. So shout out to them. So what happened was I think there was a Messianic conference where, and we were already 1 foot out the door already. My wife had come to me on her own, and she was the first one that said, I want to convert Orthodox. But my wife, we had come to a good point. Shout out to Rav Arush for the Begana Shalom. That book changed everything. When I got the Garden of Peace, wow, it changed. I know there's some people that are not so, but for me, coming from our world where we were, we take it. We take the Musar strong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we take it.
Old time religion.
It's not. I see over time. Ashkenazim don't do Musar so well, but whatever. Back in the day, we took it. It was only by us, the Sephardim, that you could patch up a few times or whatever, but still come back to shul. So I took it very, very strong. I started doing an hour of talking to Hashem every day on my marriage and all that. And as we were growing, and I'm telling you, till today, my wife is firmer than me. She's really firmer than me. And so what happened was, she comes to me first and says she wants to convert. And now I'm schlepping feet a little bit. Not because I didn't want to, but it's just like, I never seen black Jews before. So we're about to go off the deep end now, and
so it's bad
how people are going to treat us.
Bad enough that you're going to become an Orthodox Jew.
Right.
But you're going to become a black Orthodox Jew in a almost entirely white community.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to give second thought.
Yeah, of course. Then you think about, was everybody going to think, where we came from think, what are they going to, the whole thing is just like, you didn't want to know. So Hashem arranged that I think it was Erev Shabbos, I was at a grocery store and I was doing like a self-checkout. And in between the beep, I'm telling you, with bright lights, it was like music played from heaven. And I could hear all the angels going, oh, and I heard, Shabbat Shalom, brother.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode. And we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah, anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.